U.S. and Iranian officials are set to meet again next week as tensions linger over a possible U.S. strike on Tehran. Earlier today, before the president left the White House for Texas, CBS News chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes asked if he was happy with how the Iran negotiations were going.
No, I'm not. I'm not happy with the fact that they're not willing to give us what we have to have. So I'm not thrilled with that. We'll see what happens. We're talking later. We'll have some additional talks today. But no, I'm not happy with the way they're going.
Also today, Oman's foreign minister met with Vice President J.D. Vance. He has mediated several rounds of U.S.-Iran talks over the last month. The foreign minister told Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan that he believed a deal was within reach. Brennan asked what potential breakthroughs Iran has agreed to so far.
The single most important achievement, I believe, is the agreement that Iran will never, ever have a nuclear material that will create a bomb. This is, I think, a big achievement.
CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata is in Tel Aviv, Israel, with the latest.
So tonight here in Israel, with the high-stakes talks in Geneva failing to come to any sort of resolution on Thursday between the United States and Iran, anxiety is mounting not just here in Israel, but throughout the Middle East over the prospect of a war between the United States and Iran, and possibly, for that matter, Israel. So today, the U.S. Embassy here in Israel issued a security alert, and it's a new advisory. And what it does is authorizes the departure of non-emergency U.S. government personnel and their families to leave the country if they want to do so due to, quote, safety risks. They're saying people who may wish to consider leaving Israel should do so now, today, while commercial flights are available. That's happening even as the next round of talks are scheduled to take place next week in Vienna, even as the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is due to visit here in Israel. So the details of those talks, we're told, are going to be technical talks. And even as those talks are going on, more U.S. military hardware is on the way here. In Tel Aviv, they found new aerial fuelers and tankers there. We're expecting the arrival of the largest aircraft carrier in the world, the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, somewhere off the coast of Israel after departing a U.S. naval port in Crete on Thursday. Flight tracking data has shown even more, like 24 jet fighters crossing the Atlantic, in addition to the dozens of squadrons of fighters that are spread throughout bases in the Middle East. Add that to F-18s and F-35s on board both of those carriers, the Ford and the Lincoln aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea, another squadron of F-22s, stealth fighters here in Israel. That in itself is highly unlikely, and you're looking at the United States on war footing. And we have learned that the U.S. military officials have been briefing the president on all of his options, ranging from limited strikes to what might be a long, protracted war with Iran, and with Iran's missile capacity capable of reaching U.S. targets in this region. Back to you.
Charlie D'Agata, thank you. CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro joins us now. Aaron, what is the White House saying about its plans for Iran at this moment?
Elaine, good to be with you. Well, despite the large military buildup and notices to embassies that Charlie mentioned, the president says there has been no final decision made yet when it comes to a potential military strike on Iran. At the end of his remarks in Corpus Christi, Texas, he said, quote, "We have a very big decision to make. It's not easy." At issue here seems to be the top ask from President Trump and his White House that Iran give up enrichment of uranium completely. Take a listen to what President Trump told reporters in Texas before his speech.
We're not happy with the negotiation. They just don't want to. They don't want to say the key words. We're not going to have a nuclear weapon. They have to say we're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and they just can't quite get there. They want to enrich a little bit. You don't have to enrich when you have that much oil. So I'm not happy with the negotiation.
Now, it's worth noting in an interview with Face Nation, you saw a clip of that earlier, Oman's foreign minister, who has been the key mediator between the U.S. and Iran during these indirect talks, he met with Vice President J.D. Vance in D.C. today, said that Iran has agreed to give up enrichment of uranium and that currently held nuclear fuel would be blended into oil. Still, despite that being conveyed to Vice President Vance, according to Oman's foreign minister, President Trump says he's still not happy with where Iran is in the negotiations.
Well, Aaron, the president also said today the U.S. is discussing a, quote, friendly takeover of Cuba. Do we have any more insight into what the president meant?
Yeah, it's not yet known exactly what the president means when he talks about that friendly takeover or if things have reached a critical point between the U.S. and Cuba. The president has said that the administration, specifically Secretary of State Marco Rubio, have been in talks with Cuba and its leaders. The posture of this White House has been that Cuba's regime, their leadership needs to change, quote, dramatically. And that sentiment has accelerated, especially after the capture of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. Today, President Trump also said the large Cuban community in South Florida wants to go back to the country of Cuba and said there's something, quote, positive coming for those former residents.
The president traveled to Texas today, where 3 GOP Senate candidates are vying for his endorsement in the primary there. Do we know, Aaron, why the president isn't backing anyone yet?
Yeah, the president said he's made up his mind, but declined to tell reporters who his choice is. One of the Republicans running, the incumbent, Senator John Cornyn, did join President Trump and got some FaceTime with him on Air Force One from that flight to D.C. to Texas. One potential factor here is the fact that if no one gets 50% in Tuesday's elections, which seems likely if you look at the polls, a runoff election would then be held on May 26 from the top 2 vote getters. It could be in that period, in the weeks before that runoff potentially happens, that we could see President Trump announce his support for a candidate.
Right, Aaron Navarro. Aaron, thank you.